At the beginning of the school year, I got a work-study job at an Indianapolis charter school called Indianapolis Metropolitan High School, or IMET. I was to become a tutor that would work with students in whichever classroom I was needed in. During my interview, I was warned that this would be a different position. I was told that I was supposed to focus on teaching and not on discipline. I would later learn that the line between teaching and discipline was quite blurry. The school was mostly made up of troubled students and students who wanted a one-on-one experience. The student body was very different from the student body that I was used to that you usually find in smaller towns. I was hired primarily as a math tutor. I had experience in AP Calculus, Physics, and Science. However, I had become a little rusty. The students did not have a pre-calculus or a geometry teacher. The students took most of their science and math classes through an online program. The tutorials for these courses were wordy and confusing, meaning that in many cases I had to teach them pre-calculus and geometry. Many of the problems they were tasked with solving were very complicated, and oftentimes they were left to guess or to use the internet. Previously, in our education class, I had talked about the school and how it seemed more like a prison. There were cameras around every corner, police officers guarding the hallways, and students ate the same unhealthy lunch every day. The bathrooms didn't have doors on them, so faculty could always tell what was going on. I do realize that the students came from areas with high crime, but I found the mistrust of the students to be rather distasteful. Despite this, some of the teachers still developed strong bonds with the students. The student body was made up of around 200 some students, so it was easy for everyone to be acquainted with each other. I did see some rather odd things during my experience there, especially in the bathrooms. For example, I walked into the bathroom to find marijuana, fake blood on the walls, and makeshift pipes made out of pen caps. Because of this, arguments could be made that supported the strict rules, while at the same time you could blame the strict rules. It is my personal opinion that if the students felt welcome, had less dry education, and had more free time, the occurrence of these sort of incidents could be reduced. Despite my frustration, I did enjoy being around the students. They had a very different culture that seemed to be more lighthearted. At first, I felt somewhat threatened by this, but after I learned more about their way of life, I realized that they were just kids who weren't that different than me. We went on a field trip once to see the movie Selma at a movie theater. I really enjoyed seeing the kids have a good time together without being bogged down by the strict rules and dry schoolwork. The experience challenged me every day, from dealing with bossy bosses and stubborn students to helping someone pass an important test or bonding with a student. This experience has given me an insight into state-run education and has made me rethink my stance on education. I originally wanted to be a professor, but I now have found myself rethinking my goals. It's not that I hated my experience. I have just found myself frustrated with this education system that doesn't seem to have any hope in sight. If anything, this experience has pointed me towards activism and desire to study politics, corruption, social conflict, and anthropology. Thank you for listening to my presentation about my experience at Indianapolis Metropolitan High School. I hope it has given you a different view into the many different ways that education can play out.